Record. We're ready to go.
All right, I'd like to welcome everybody to the March 24th, 2021 Public Safety Committee meeting being held virtually. Kelly, can we have a roll call?
Okay. Chairman Lockmiller,
Here.
Alderman Plufka,
Here.
Alderwoman Ebling,
Here.
Alderwoman Sims.
Here.
All members are present.
Thank you. Move on to approval of the agenda. If there aren't any changes, could we approve by acclamation? See anybody have any problem with that? So we shall do it by acclamation. Move on to item number 3 is citizen comment. Kelly, anybody in the audience tonight?
We do have some people in the audience, but no one has their hand raised at this moment. Oh, Randy and Sandy have their hand raised.
Okay, let's hear from them.
All right. There you go.
Hi, thanks for recognizing me. Randy and Sandy Delo, we live in 9134 Pine Avenue, and I've been on once before. I'd like to get on again and express a deep concern about the amount of traffic and the speeding traffic up and down Pine Avenue. So I'm referencing all the traffic calming. Would love to see some more traffic calming devices on Pine. I know we have one down about the 9300 block, but it doesn't do anything for us in the 9100 block. And we've got speeding delivery trucks, speeding food delivery cars, speeding grocery delivery cars, and a lot of cut through speeding traffic. We've got a little house down in Florida in a, I'll call it a vacation community, a lot of residential area. And we used to have a lot of problems with speeding traffic through the neighborhoods down there. A little over a year ago, we put a lot of speed humps in the neighborhood. It has cut down on the speeding traffic tremendously. It's the only thing that is guaranteed to slow down traffic. The speed signs don't do it. Even the police, you know, they can't be everywhere. And we shouldn't be wanting to pay police to put radar on a street. So I'm pleading and begging for more speed humps, especially on Pine. It's a horrible cut through street. And I think if we really get enough of them on here, it'll cut down on the cut throughs. People will start going some other way. They'll figure out a different way to get from McKnight to Brentwood. Maybe they'll use Litzinger like they should. So anyway, that's my comment. Oh, I did have a thought. If there is a concern as far as cost on the speed humps, why don't you try and adopt a speed hump? I'm sure a lot of the neighbors would be more than willing to adopt a speed hump on our street. And I'd be one definitely that would do that. So,
Randy, if I could just make a comment. We've got, this committee's worked on a traffic calming toolkit. And if you go to the city website, there's a process for applying for a speed table or speed cushion, whatever it ends up being. It starts with a petition. It sounds like you've got a lot of neighbors that are interested. So can I just direct you to that and start the process there?
absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, on the website under the, no, tell me where, and I'll go get it.
I think it's under, Bola's
I think it's under
government.
I think it's under Public Works, actually.
Public Works.
So
think so.
Randy could just email Dan or I, and we can send you the link. I think that could be easier instead of us giving you multiple directions. Our email address is on the website, so we'll be able to turn around and get that to you today.
Okay, well, I was trying to see who was talking. I couldn't tell.
Bola Conde, City Clerk.
Okay, so you are Dan,
Yes.
and
Yeah, it's actually under residents, and then it says traffic calming toolkit, but we can send you the hyperlink.
that'd be great. I know we'd be able to get plenty of signatures for it. And you know, we're scared to death. I mean, the beautiful thing about the neighborhood, there's so many young families moving in. And I bet on our block alone, well, I know on our block alone, we have 9 kids under 5 years old. So it's
Okay.
I'm afraid something's going to happen and we'll all hate it. It does. So anyway, I'll get busy on a petition. I appreciate any help. So
All right.
get Bola and Dan, I'll definitely get back to you with that information.
Thank you, Randy.
Thanks for listening.
Kelly, anybody else?
That's it.
All right. We'll move on to the city administrator report. Bola, I think you have an item.
Thank you, Alderman Lockmiller. I just wanted to share with the committee, the Municipal League of Metro St. Louis has a meeting scheduled for tomorrow night. I think start time is about 6:30. Out of the many things that they will be discussing is an update on Senate Bill 5. The Attorney General, Eric Schmidt, was able to reinstate Senate 5 by going through the Cole County Circuit Court. So it will now be effective, and all municipalities in St. Louis County will have, their police department will have to be, municipal police department will have to be certified by August of this year. Now, reading through what all that entails, I don't believe it's going to impact the Brentwood Police Department. We have always been a professional department and are in compliance with the 12 items that are listed under Senate bill. But what I'm told by Steve Abels is that there are some cities in perhaps North County who might need a little bit more time to be compliant by this August deadline. So they are working through the General Assembly to see if they can extend that deadline to November. I've shared this with Chief Spees, and I think he can speak to the 12 items that are listed here, but I don't have any concerns with our ability to meet and uphold this. So I just wanted to share this with you in case you all aren't able to attend the meeting tomorrow night.
Chief, is there anything you wanted to add on that?
No, there isn't. Alderman Lockmiller. Bill is correct in that the items that are listed in that Senate Bill 5, we are in compliance with already. We don't have any concerns over it at all. What we see.
Any questions for Bola or the chief on this? Chief, I just have one, actually a couple. When it mentions police certification, I'm sure that includes CLIA, but does that mean it could be something else if they just use the term certification?
Yeah, the state of Missouri offers a certification process as well. There's several municipalities in St. Louis County that have been certified by the state, which counts as towards Senate Bill 5. And
then on the pursuit policy, we decide whether we pursue or in our case we don't, it just has to be a written policy. Is that what they're saying?
According to Senate Bill 5, that is correct, yes.
Okay. All right, great. Well, if no other questions, we'll move on to reports of committee chair and alderman. The only thing I have is, Pat, I want to thank you for stepping up and being on the committee. I know you kind of came in to fill Tom Kramer's spot when he moved out of town and stepped right in. So thank you.
Well, you're very welcome, and I've enjoyed being on this committee and learned a lot. I've always really appreciated our public service people here. They do a really good job.
All right, thanks, Pat. Move on to David. Alderman Plefko.
Yeah, I just wanted to say the same thing with regard to Pat. Pat, it's been great having you on the committee, and I appreciate you stepping up and being as active as you've been on the board. I know you were kind of pressed into service. People were kind of asking you to be a part of this, but I think you've done a great job, and I really appreciated the time working with you. If Randy and Sandy are still on watching this meeting, tomorrow I will email both of you and help with getting that process started so you can start talking to neighbors about additional calming and things like that. That's all I had.
Yeah. Pat?
Thank you, David. I really felt like I didn't know what I was doing. So, the kind words are very much appreciated.
Well, you pulled it off.
Some people are good actors.
No. Okay, Sonny, any report?
No report other than I echo the sentiment that's been said. Pat, thank you for all your hard work. I enjoyed working with you, and I wish you all the best in your next political the chapter of your political career. But yeah, thank you for your service.
Thank you, Sonny, and I'm just sorry I didn't really get to know any of you really well. I would have appreciated that, I'm sure.
2D makes it hard.
Yes, it does.
It does. All right, on to department reports. We have the police department. Chief, you have something for us?
Yes, sir. I was going to go through just some crime incidents that happened in the last couple of weeks of interest. There's 6 cases over the last 2 weeks in Brentwood where we've had nighttime crime where cars were broken into. We had one on the 8th of March. This is one that's been plaguing us on the night watch with Hoffman Brothers, folks coming into their lots, stealing their trucks and other equipment. So we had one on the 8th. That truck was recovered and processed by our detectives within a couple of days. But that's an ongoing issue there on the night watch for vehicle crime at Hoffman Brothers. We also have one, this is another one that just continues to be a problem for us, and that's the Jury Inn and the related parking structures around the condos that are in that area. We have vehicles that are broken into on a regular basis at night, and we had an incident on the 9th of March where 2 cars had their windows smashed and the property taken at the Jury Inn. Going up to March 14th, we had an officer that observed a guy at Whitehall and McKnight on foot trying to get into a car. They had a foot pursuit, and they ended up catching the driver of, I guess you'd call it his getaway car. There were 2 handguns seized in this case. He had been over in Rock Hill prior to Brentwood that evening on the 14th, and he was breaking in cars in Rock Hill. So he's been charged with those crimes and is currently in custody. We had an incident, we had a burglary in the 2400 block of high school in this time period. It has led to a lot of consternation out of that block over there in the 2400 block of high school at night. We received several 911 calls from the neighbors. We put a detail up there to watch for people at night. And that's an ongoing issue right now, so we're keeping an eye on that. 2700 Bremerton on the 16th of March. There was a nighttime incident of a crime going through. It was captured on Ring video, which is obviously very common this day and age of these people committing crime at night. We're lucky in that we do get decent video often of them, as scary as that video might be. Alderwoman Nancy Parker Tice's car was hit during this time frame. Her car was gone through at her house. So that's an area that has been hit in this time frame. And then we also had Officer Hopler got a radio call from a newspaper guy that was working at night who saw suspicious activity. His information was good. Hopler tried to stop the car with several subjects in it. They fled from him, which is obviously very typical these days. And that car was last seen out of the city going east. So we had an uptick in several incidents at night in the last couple of weeks here in Brentwood for the nighttime crime. We have in a little...
Oh, in about 5 minutes.
Could you mute Randy, Kelly?
I'm sorry.
You're good.
Sorry.
So we've been over the course of the time that I've been here. These nighttime crime incidents have escalated, and they're happening all over the area. Unfortunately, I think for the future for us in Brentwood, St. Charles County and Jefferson County are really taking a tough stand with this. The police departments have created a task force at night to address these nighttime crimes in their areas. And their courts and judges have taken this very seriously, and they are actually getting really good bonds and locking down suspects they catch. That's not good for us. We foresee that in the next few months, as these guys figure out that those areas are off limits, they're going to press back into the area around Central County. So we're expecting that in the summer months that we're going to get hit more frequently. They're not going to stop what they're doing. This is their new fun. So I've said this multiple times. Major Hawkins is sitting next to me, and when I'm finished here in a minute, Angie wants to share a PowerPoint with you that gives you a little heads up on some cases that are going on that we have captured on video. Changing gears a little bit away from crime, I think most of you know that Sergeant Hattie Carmen was injured off duty in October last year, and she had a significant injury to her hand during a hunting incident. Hattie's been with the city of Brentwood as a police officer and as a sergeant for almost 25 years. She has been given the advice and direction by her personal physician that she will not be able to return to work. So she's asked for a disability pension application, which we're going through in the pension. And we anticipate that her last day will be sometime in end of April or early May, somewhere in there. Maybe earlier than that, just depends on how quickly the pension moves forward. So because of Hattie's position as a sergeant, we will be missing, we'll be missing a sergeant and subsequently a corporal's position. We've talked about it. Go ahead, Steve.
I don't mean to cut you off, but we've got, under old business, we got that promotional process.
Okay.
Are you getting into that, or?
No, at this point, I was just going to recognize Hattie, but I can talk about it now if it's easier, whatever you think.
Well, we'll wait for old business with that.
Okay.
Because we've got that on there, and then we've got the sponsorship policy to talk about under old business.
Okay, right. At this point, what I'd like to do is have Angie talk to you about, she has a PowerPoint presentation that was uploaded under our crime report for this evening from the police department on board docs. I don't know if any of you had a chance to look at it yet, but Angie, you want to?
Yeah, Kelly, would you mind opening that up and sharing your screen if you could? And bless you, I saw you sneeze.
Sorry.
No, don't be sorry.
It takes a while to download because it's a big file.
Sure. Sure, understood. Just to give you guys a brief idea, this won't take too long. It's not a death by PowerPoint endeavor here. I just kind of wanted to send home the message of what Chief Spees is talking about with our nighttime crime and the volatility of these incidents, the uptick in the incidents, and the challenges that we're going to face here in Brentwood and regionally probably, considering the efforts in St. Charles County and Jefferson County to be a bit more proactive throughout the entire criminal justice system with these folks. But I do want to give you an idea of the behaviors that we see that are escalating, the degree to which these folks are armed very frequently, and just be able to physically show you. We could tell you all day long, but as they do say, a picture's worth 1,000 words. Now, a lot of these are not just pictures, they're videos that we've collected from residents, Ring cameras, Nest cameras, surveillance cameras, etc. And it's an actual blessing that no one has been injured in these incidents, specifically the ones that I'll get to show you here through these. And a little bit, a little bit of the challenge too is, and Alderman Lockmuller, you brought up the pursuing piece of this and the restrictions that law enforcement has with that. And it's very frustrating to attempt to address these folks without that piece, without that bite to our bark, if you will. Anybody can flip on lights and they can take off, but it does become frustrating to have them run out of town, and that's the end of that story. So just something to keep in mind as we look at these and kind of what we're dealing with. To give you an example too of what these task force are doing, St. Charles County's task force last night had an incredibly successful night. They had 6 pursuits. They recovered 2 guns, made 8 arrests, ran over 48 criminal history checks. They did a really great job. So here's the presentation, and Kelly, if you don't mind helping me out here, I appreciate it.
Can you see it? Can you all see it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Great.
Yeah, if you'll mind clicking on the second slide.
So Kelly, remove the enable editing.
I'm trying. Here, hang on. There we go. Okay, second slide. Here we go. Okay.
I lost it all of a sudden.
Screen sharing.
You're
Here
not
we
screen
go.
sharing anymore.
Here we are.
Here.
Is that better?
We don't see
No.
it. Click on the PowerPoint.
Somebody's face did.
Minute.
It looks like it's on your, towards the bottom where it's the icon that's got a P,
Circle.
bottom middle.
On the very, very bottom of the black bar.
Ask.
Yeah, it's up, Kelly. It's on the very bottom of your screen. You just need to click on that far right icon with the P on it.
I don't know what we're looking for. It says,
All the way on the bottom. Where your mail and all your stuff is on the bottom of the screen.
It's right next to the Zoom icon.
that's not it.
Open it up. Okay.
Can you see it now?
No.
Click back on it. There it is. Can you all see it?
Nope.
Mm-mm.
It's a massive file.
We're sharing. Choose virtual background, choose
Do we have the ability to
video
screen share?
Mhm.
Do we have the ability?
I don't have it on my desktop. You're signed in under me.
Yeah, but you have it on your.
I apologize. I don't know where it's not.
I downloaded it on my computer. I could probably open it.
Please do. That'd be great.
Let me try something here too, guys, if you don't mind. Thank you for entertaining this. I apologize. Christ from a cracker.
Sounds like we might be talking our way through the video.
I certainly am.
Oh, there it is.
Dan's just silently in the background. He's like, here, guys, I'll fix this.
He did.
I don't know what slide he's on though.
He is on, I think, the second to last slide.
Yeah.
Would you
Go up
be
the-
willing to scroll up for me, Dan? That'd be great. Anybody?
Yeah, you want me to just launch it then? I think I can do that.
That would be outstanding.
Hang on. Let's see. I'll go. Okay, whatever. Does it look right? Maybe?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
I might
Just
ask
tell
you
me
to-
when you want me to advance it.
Yeah, you can advance to the next one.
Okay.
Thank you. Awesome.
I'll be the clicker.
Okay, great. Can everybody see that? Yes. Great, we're good to go. Just to give you an idea, the top right bullet point here says that we've had 7 felony fleeings, 1 carjacking, and 2 car clotter arrests. And that is specific to Brentwood. So that's year to date. From January 1st to right now, we've had 7 vehicles that our officers have tried to stop in the middle of the night who have either looked suspicious or that they've received calls for service on because of their suspicious activity, who have subsequently fled from us at a very high rate of speed. And it is a felony, it's a crime. Again, it's not something that we're allowed to pursue for. Typically what happens when this occurs is we will chase them to the end of town, and that is it. And they are gone. The carjacking was not a Brentwood resident. It was involving a Shell employee down on Manchester and his mother. Great news about that case. We've got a solid case, a suspect, another suspect. We're working through the process on that right now. And again, great news, nobody was injured. We've had 2 car clotter arrests, meaning we have had 2 arrests where our officers have been dispatched to a call for suspicious persons, suspicious activity. And when they arrived, they found people in a stolen vehicle inside of another vehicle. Weapons were seized, people were arrested, charges were issued. Those things are good. that's a snippet of what really occurs. That's just what we've been able to put our hands on with the number of officers we currently have. The second bullet point on your left does talk about the fact that there's no regional task force here in St. Louis County. And to the chief's point, that presents a unique situation for us, because at the point these folks decide, I'm not going across the river to St. Charles County anymore, I'm not going across the river to Jefferson County anymore, I'm going to stick right here where I know I can't be chased by the police, and I know I'm not going to get a charge issued against me or any kind of bond set if I do. That's obviously going to present a big problem for us. Third bullet point on the left, and you'll see this a lot in these videos as we go along here, a lot of these suspects are armed. Not everyone that you see in these videos are going to be armed. A lot of them are. A lot of them you'll see them wearing satchels, and typically what they'll do, since they're incapable of carrying a pistol with the clothing they've chosen, they'll put a pistol in this satchel on their person. The top right, we talk about escalating behavior. One of the particular videos I want to show you was an incident that did happen in St. Charles County, and it involved 5 suspects, a stolen car, a gun, a burglary. I'll get into it. However, it's one thing to be stealing from cars in the middle of the night, even though people are armed. It's quite another to try to start entering people's homes while they sleep. We've already discussed the 5th bullet point there, the challenges we have with pursuits. And after we get through all this, I'm absolutely open to any questions you may have or further discussion about any of that. Dan, if you can go to the next one, please. So this is a picture that was taken. It was basically a screenshot of someone's surveillance camera. This was in Clayton's jurisdiction a little bit ago. The snippet you see here is basically this subject is with about 3 or 4 other individuals, and he is keeping watch with his firearm in his left hand while his buddies run around and try door handles and stuff like that. So that's one of the many alarming things you're about to see. Can you go to the next one, please? Thank you so much. Down on the bottom there, Dan, can you fast forward that to right at 4 minutes? It says unavailable. I don't think it's working for you, which really bums me out. Just to give you an idea of what you would have seen, and I apologize, I'm not sure why that didn't transfer through. A screenshot would be obviously very telling. The 2 vehicles you see in the driveway, 2 individuals come in between those vehicles and approach the pickup truck with a pistol drawn and aimed inside of the pickup truck, as if they're prepared to encounter anyone who may be inside the vehicle to either rob them of the vehicle or to shoot them if they provide or give any resistance, etc. Then they try the door handles. These 2 subjects arrived in a stolen car that parked right across the street, and 5 subjects get out. If you go to the next slide, Dan, and I'm not sure if that'll play either. It doesn't look like it will. This is a different view of that house, and you can see in the driveway there is the truck up on our top left of the screen. Again, just across the street, the suspect vehicle pulls up and parks, and 5 individuals get out, and they literally scatter. And in a matter of seconds, they're in this driveway and other driveways, trying door handles, getting into cars, etc. The same group of individuals who committed this particular crime here was a few blocks over and got into someone's vehicle, found the garage door opener, opened the garage, found that the house was not locked from the garage into the house, entered the home. The teenage daughter that was acting like she was asleep on the couch probably saved her own life by doing so. They came in, they took a look around the first floor of the home, they took an iPad and some other electronic things, and then they left. Obviously, that would have been nice to have seen these guys armed. You would really get a sense for what kind of danger she was in. She was smart enough to act like she was asleep. As soon as they left, she yelled out for her dad, but it was too late. They were already gone, obviously. The things that could have gone wrong in that scenario I think we can all use our imaginations with that. And that's what I'm talking about when I say an escalation in behavior. The boldness from these criminals has escalated, not just to get into people's vehicles in their streets, in their driveways, in their garages, but now into garages, into homes. And they think, well, I'm doing this undetected. No one's going to stop me. And I'm armed. What's an armed homeowner going to, they're willing to take that chance. And that's very alarming to us from law enforcement. Dan, will you go to the next one, please? And I assume that's going to tell you the same thing. Boy, am I bummed out. You can go to the next one. So here, and again, please entertain me while I describe for you what would happen in this video. If you can see the basketball hoop on the top right of that picture, right underneath that is a truck that's parked. And two subjects come in from the left side of the screen and they're sprinting to the truck. And one of them has a pistol up in his hand as he approaches the truck, very similar to what we saw in the St. Charles incident, where it appears that they are absolutely ready and willing to challenge somebody who may or may not be in that vehicle. That's a very tactically advantageous thing for them to do. And it's alarming for us because it shows a lot of preparation and it kind of shows their intent and their mindset when they're coming out and doing these crimes in the middle of the night. It's very scary stuff. Can you go to the next one, please? That one's pretty generic. I assume it won't. Yeah, unavailable. You can go to the next one. Here, you have this guy in the center of your camera screen, basically. He has a pistol inside of his satchel that he is adjusting currently inside around his torso while his buddy is going through the car that's in this driveway. So he's armed, the guy's going through the car, and this is very typical of what we see commonly where one person stands watch who is armed and other people go through the vehicles and things like that. Can you go to the next one, please? Here what we see is three subjects walking down the street. They went along and they tried door handles. There's another view of them if you click on the next screen. This is one of them entering somebody's driveway. They tried the truck, they tried the trailer. Unclear of whether or not he was armed at the time. However, the numbers have shown us that these guys are very heavily armed. Just an idea of how brazen these folks are. The motion light's on. He's very well aware that there's a security camera there. He's going to do it anyway because these things aren't preventative measures. They're just kind of after the fact. And they're very wise to the fact that, okay, everybody has motion activated lights. That doesn't mean somebody's awake and somebody's going to challenge me for what I'm doing. Can you go to the next one, please? Okay, that will be a bag of uselessness if it doesn't play. Okay, no worries, no worries. The top right picture, I would ask you guys to focus on there. Two young individuals come into the screen from the top right part, and they do pause for a second when they see the motion activated light come on. They look directly into the camera. They're not masked up or anything, and proceed to try the handles on these doors. Both of them have satchels that they're wearing. They appear to be heavy, as if there's something in them. Could be stolen property, could be a pistol, who knows? Again, this is behind someone's home in their parking pad in front of their garage while they're at home sleeping at night with their family. Next one, please. Different view of the same situation. This is from their back porch. And those two cars you see in that photo, we just saw the opposite position of that, the opposite angle. You can go on to the next one. Same situation here, guys, and I hate to keep beating a dead horse. And it's the same thing that we would see every time. Someone comes walking up the driveway, the motion light comes on, tries both door handles, and walks away and tries the next person. Next one. This was a picture, or was a video, of officers in foot pursuit of a suspect who had been doing car clottings inside parking garages. So a couple different things are presented to us in these scenarios with parking garages. Is sometimes if we catch them in there, they feel that they're trapped and they'll try to run, they'll try to drive over or past us to get out. In this case, he ran from the officer. Again, he had a satchel. He ended up getting caught. He had a .45 caliber handgun in the satchel. The officers in this case did a great job capturing him. They were actually Richmond Heights, and that was in their jurisdiction. Very similar to our parking garages here. If you'll go to the next slide, Dan. Thank you. This obviously, you can see the timestamp or the date stamp, excuse me, on the top right. This was back in June of last year. And it was just after things had kind of sort of calmed down a little bit from all the unrest. And this was the Metro parking garage here in Brentwood. One of our officers was on routine patrol, and on the bottom right picture, you can see his patrol car in the very back. And he was actually backing up because he had seen this car that was pulled into the back. It was running, but the lights were off, and he thought, well, that's strange. And as he passed, he could see people inside with their hoods up and masks on, and he thought, uh-oh, I just ran into some car clotters. He absolutely did. And when they went to get away from him, they almost went head on in a collision with him in the middle of that garage to get out of there so fast. They even abandoned, I believe, 2 of the individuals that you see in the middle bottom picture who were trying to find their way out a little bit later. Again, these are things that we deal with in the middle of the night, and the volatility of these situations and the brazenness of these folks is really, really alarming. Again, I'm sorry that the electronic piece or the technology piece didn't work out for us tonight, so I couldn't show you the videos of how quickly these things occur and how they unfold and how they're able to hit so many cars in one night. It's really, really eye-opening. Not sure what's on the next slide. It might be the end.
It is.
Yes. Okay.
If I could jump in real quick to Angie's point, the last 2 incidents we've had in Brentwood, the subjects were in stolen cars, and in both cases they were armed. It's getting highly unusual to catch these guys who aren't armed when they're out doing this kind of work that they do at night. The second piece is that we are part of an information sharing process throughout St. Louis County and out into Jeffco and St. Charles County. The list of known violators that are doing this type of crime, including carjackings, is growing exponentially. There's groups, I guess you call them loosely knit gangs, that are readily identifiable. They're running together. They've been identified. They've been arrested together. They keep getting pumped back out on the street. They keep getting locked up. There are literally hundreds of people doing this now. So this is kind of the new game in town. The last thing I was going to mention real quickly to Angie's point, we have what we say in our little vernacular is we've jumped numerous cars doing this on our night watch. We give the officers a little bit of a latitude to try and capture the license plate on the car that runs from them. The reason we do that is so that they can run the plate and determine whether or not the vehicle was used in a violent crime. Just as an example of this, in June of last year, we had a car run. The officers were able to get the plate. They ran the plate. The car had just been taken in an armed carjacking and was wanted for a separate armed robbery. That car reaches the level of a pursuit for us. But there is a gap, a period of time sometimes when our officers need to catch up to the car to be able to see the plate and then get it to the dispatcher and run that plate. So it really, this is part of this education process. There is a small period of time there where we see the officers see a car, try to stop it, it runs, and then they try to run the plate. That ends up in being a minute or 2 before they actually can determine whether or not the car was used in a violent crime. If it hasn't been used in a violent crime, then they terminate the pursuit. So again, it's just all part of this education process as we're moving forward and try as best we can to address what's going on in Brentwood and the communities around us. And that's all we had for the crime report, Alderman Lockmiller.
Any questions for the chief and/or Angie? David?
Yeah, thank you. So with Hattie set to apply for disability and be off, how far are we down? Where are we at in terms of police force at this moment, or anticipating her leaving?
She would put us down 1 from our authorized strength. So,
Okay, so is that 27?
28.
28. Okay. And then what would be involved in the city of Brentwood altering their pursuit policy? Is that something we can do completely internally, or is that something that we have to involve Slate because we're a part of that insurance group, or is that something we have to clear with St. Louis County or with the state of Missouri as well?
there's no reason to cover with St. Louis County or state of Missouri on it. Just so everybody's aware, to the state of Missouri, if you run from a police officer anywhere in the state of Missouri, it's a felony. The driver of the vehicle is committing a felony. So you don't need permission, so to speak, from the state or anyone else in terms of a pursuit. These restrictions that we're seeing in law enforcement are really self-imposed to a large degree. And it's an interesting question on your question about the insurance coverage, Alderman Plufka, because there's a standard now that really what we're looking at is use or threatened use of violent crime is kind of the standard of the pursuit policy. However, there's a lot of cities, including all the ones we've talked about tonight, at night that have lifted that pursuit restriction based on the fact of how volatile and dangerous these particular set of people are to our communities. And that decision, I can tell you that in one city in St. Louis County, I know this for sure, they're not in Slate. They simply moved their pursuit policies and allow their officers to chase these guys at night, but they're not covered by Slate. Bola and I have talked about the Slate issue with the pursuit policy, and quite frankly, I don't want to in any way expose our city, to an incident, whether, something outside of our policy. I firmly believe that if we go to some version of a task force, either that's with an ECDC approach of the 8 cities around us, or we look at internally just in Brentwood at looking at trying to affect this nighttime crime better, and we can, we have to look at that pursuit policy and see what we can do. Just as an example, one of the things that's extremely effective is when these cars run is spiking them. But by the letter of the law and policy, it's still pursuit. But we can create a policy around the intention of spiking and then following the car if the car tires are going down.
So to follow up on that, I have one question for you, Chief, and then I have one for Bola. Does changing our pursuit policy or the way in which we change it, does it affect our ongoing certification with CALEA? That's my one question for you. Secondly, for Bola, maybe you can answer that question because you might be more familiar with how Slate might react. I know there was one other story about, I thought, an elected police chief in St. Anne, if I can remember correctly, who decided that he was going to pursue speeders no matter what. And that was contrary to, at least to what I understood to be Slate's stated policy when it came to catching speeders. And they continue to do it, and I believe they're still members of Slate. What I'm curious about is, if we were inclined to want to change this, would the board of aldermen have to weigh in on this and say yes or no to it, or is it a purely internal thing that the police department can implement as they see fit? Secondly, do we have to involve Slate in some way in that process? And that's really my two questions for Bola.
I think to the first one, Alderman Plufka, we can internally change our policy based on what we believe is best for the city to protect the city. The insurance piece, quite frankly, is on the shoulders of the city administrator and the board, just to assure that what we intend to do will be covered. And when you come back to us in the PD, then we can create our path to a better way of affecting these people with us, so to speak. And if Slate, I don't know why we would allow an insurance cover not to let us make adjustments that is in the public safety interest of our community with a really challenging crime that's very dangerous. And I understand the pursuits are dangerous as well. I fully understand that. But these folks that are doing the stuff at night need to be addressed. And we can't do that with our hands handcuffed behind our back with a policy that says we just let them go, because it's not working. And that's where we are.
So in my mind, I think there are two questions here. I think to be a member of Slate and have police liability coverage, we do have to have a no pursuit policy. So if the direction is that the city wants to adopt a pursuit policy. What I would suggest is I go back and pose the question to Slate, and to our insurance carrier, what would be the impact to the city? What would be the impact in terms of membership in Slate? So I would go back and ask the question. I wouldn't want to speculate tonight.
Just to be clear on that, Bola, our policy mirrors most all other cities in St. Louis County, and that's we can chase cars in the event that it's involved in a violent crime. Use or threatened use of deadly force incident, we are authorized to pursue. So just to be clear on that, these cases often don't pass that threshold.
Right.
It doesn't mean that they're not extremely dangerous individuals. They just haven't reached that level. These are typically cars will jump out of Brentwood Forest or wherever we may be at 4 in the morning. We know full well what they're doing. We know they're almost always going to be armed, and that they're very dangerous to both the officers and to the people that were, in our neighborhood. So, but again, it may not have reached that level of use or threatened use of deadly force at that point.
Hey, Chief, what about the surrounding municipalities? I mean, if we change our policy, what do we do when they run into Maplewood? Do we continue to pursue, or how does that work?
So one of the considerations there is this has to be managed very closely by Angie and myself, Alderman Lockmiller, and it's complicated. But depending on the number of officers that we had out, or if we were in a task force environment, spiking the car makes this, it doesn't make it safe, it makes it a ton safer than just flat chasing the car. So a spiking event, there's areas of egress out of Brentwood that are pretty typical. Highway 64 East, 170 North. If I had set up spike teams of cars that flee from us, that's where they'd be. Sometimes on Manchester, but not often. But yeah, it's going to be, if we were to do that, oftentimes what you're going to hear is the surrounding municipalities and the city of St. Louis, they will not engage with us if it doesn't reach that level of use or threatened use of deadly force. Go ahead.
Another thing to your point, Alderman, is, and to kind of piggyback on what the chief said, I would argue that 95 or 97% of these vehicles that flee hit the highways, and they either hit 170 North or they hit 64, sometimes west, mostly east. If it were a scenario where for some reason this vehicle was going east on Manchester into Maplewood at 80, 90 miles an hour, then that's part of the monitoring that the chief is talking about. That's a conversation I have with our supervisors. I say, hey, here's what we're doing. Here's our mission. It's a completely different scenario when you have a vehicle on an almost empty highway in the middle of the night that's been spiked, and you've got police officers who are in a quasi-controlled environment to then apprehend those people if and when the vehicle becomes disabled, versus you put it into Manchester, which is partly commercial, parts of it are residential. It's not a highway. There's a bunch of places somebody could run into Christ knows what. Point being, that's that monitoring piece that becomes really, really key. It's on the supervisor to say, no, we're not doing that. Not that it's, if it's one of these car plotters and it doesn't reach that level, yeah, we stop that.
One thing that is going on with this, St. Louis County's prosecuting attorney's office is working specifically with me. And I thought we were going to get to the point where we were going to put together a task force in the ECDC area of the central cities. It does not look like that's going to happen at this point. But my point is this: county prosecutors recognize that this is a significant risk to our communities. They are willing and are going to assign a prosecutor, whatever gets that far, specifically just for these crimes related to car crime at night, related to these escalations of people whose houses these guys are going into using their garage door opener, which is, that's terrifying to think that you could walk into your kitchen at night and 3 armed guys would be standing there looking at you. So they will give us a prosecutor at this point. That's how interested and engaged they are with us. But again, if we're not going to have a concerted, controlled effort to try and do this, it's not worth doing. I mean, it is volatile, and I've told this to you all before. There's nothing safe about anything that we're talking about. These are dangerous guys, very, very dangerous people that put us at great risk trying to do what we're doing to catch them. The backside of that, though, is if we don't do anything, eventually somebody's going to get hurt that we get paid to protect. And that's what we're trying. We're trying to figure out to affect it, but to do it as safely as we can. And quite frankly, part of this is a numbers game. And we typically have 3 or 4 policemen working in Brentwood at night. There is no way we can do anything different with 3 cops. It's not going to happen. First of all, most of the time, these guys are running 4 and 5 deep and often in 2 cars. There's no way we're putting 1 or 2 policemen against 7 or 8 guys. It's not going to happen. So again, there's a lot of ingredients here that need to come together for us to really affect this well. And quite frankly, we're nowhere near it right now. We just don't have people.
Did you have a question, Sonny?
Well, a comment. I mean, I would be in favor of kind of pulling all the levers to see what our options are. I mean, I can't imagine that this is the intended consequence of a no pursuit policy, that we would have these dangerous, caught on camera proof of, not just perceived as dangerous, but armed people coming into our city and doing this kind of crime. I mean, I don't, I'd like to find out what the implications are for it, from an insurance perspective. I'd like to see the development of if we were going, I'll call it a pursuit policy, but an alternative, what would that look like? Do we need to hire more police officers? I mean, I think that this should be our top priority. I mean, I think that this is much more serious than, say, ticketing a car that has an expired license plate tag. I mean, I just, like, someone's gonna get shot. I mean, God forbid. I'm kind of speechless, frankly. So I don't know, I don't want to. I defer to the subject matter experts, but I would like to see the development of what would a plan look like. And I guess if I did have a question, I mean, why isn't St. Louis County doing something similar to what St. Charles and Jeffco did? I mean, can we ask our council? I mean, whom would we ask in order to, be an advocate for a countywide or a multi-cooperative municipal approach to addressing this problem?
Prosecution, yeah.
So St. Louis County does have a task force. Unfortunately, they spend about 95% of their time in North County. And they do that because that's where the good fishing hole is, right? That's where they make most of their arrests in North County. Unfortunately, the people that are arresting in North County have already come into places like Brentwood and done their dirty little tricks, and they're going back home. So county is, and it doesn't mean that if we had a task force, or even internally here in Brentwood and within our own department, that they wouldn't come help us. But it is what it is. They do really well in North County making arrests, and they tend to stay up in that area because of that. City also has a task force for years now. They've been doing this hugely successful in the city. Night after night, they have great arrests. But, again, it's volatile. Last night, they had great arrests of 3 guys, all on parole, all armed, all out doing nighttime crime, foot pursuits, a pursuit. There's nothing easy, safe, or pretty about any of this. That's the environment that we're in with these folks. And in Brentwood, luckily, I mean, this isn't an every night event, but they come in 3, 4, 5 times a week. And sometimes the 3 or 4 officers we got on patrol see the car. Oftentimes they don't. And part of that's a numbers game. And it's very difficult to be able to do things like sit on the ingress areas in Brentwood, like the highways, at 4 in the morning. I mean, there's not that much traffic coming into our town this time in the morning. So these guys will stick out. But you got to have the folks out there to address it.
David, did you?
Well, I thought that Alderwoman Sims's comments were right on. I absolutely agree with everything she said, and I believe that if something needs to come out of tonight in terms of direction by the committee, that I think that would be the direction I would be in favor of, and that would be to develop a policy and to talk about, you know, insurance implications, police force implications, whether we can engage everybody regionally, both on a crime prevention or a pursuit basis, as well as a prosecution basis, and report back to the committee about a plan that takes into account all of those factors.
If that's a motion, I'll second it.
Yeah, Chief, if you'd want to put something together for, you talk about a task force. I mean, within the limit, what would be your wish list? And then, of course, we'd have to whittle it down, I'm sure, from a financial liability and all this other, but at least we'd have something to start with.
So we've done that, and we can get that to you, Alderman Lockmuller. And again, I don't know how the neighboring cities are if they're gonna join in on this. But I will tell you that we've also done an alternate plan of an internal approach here in Brentwood. But hey, I don't want to be putting all of you in a position where, we're educating you on the volatility of this and the danger that these people present. Whether you're going to hire more officers to address this is simply up to whether or not you think we have the money to do it. But I will tell you as your chief that we have 3 or 4 officers that ride our streets at night right now on our manpower as it is. If we had an additional 4 assigned to the night watch and specifically charged with doing nighttime crime, that becomes a different game. Now we can set up spike teams. Now we can flood areas as needed. We can sit in our retail. We can sit up at the jury. We can sit on the exits of the highway. We become a very proficient team at addressing these people when they get into town. We're not going to stop everything. It's not going to happen. Can't be everywhere at once. But we would have an excellent chance at affecting this crime. And I can predict to you what will happen because we've seen it for years after year. Once the bad guys figure out this central corridor, even down in they know Brentwood Forest, for example. They know the jury in like the back of their hand. They know these areas. If they keep getting addressed by the police in these areas, they will go elsewhere. They talk to each other all the time on social media and in the holdover if they get arrested. It's just what it is.
Pat, did you have something?
Yeah, I just have a question. In simpler words, are you saying you are kind of outmanned and outarmed at this point?
Absolutely. Especially if you look at the video that Andy couldn't show you of Brian Hopler in one of our garages in Brentwood, surrounded by 5 armed guys within the last, 6 weeks? Yes, is the short answer to that.
Thank you.
Well, I think we have a motion and a second to give some direction to the chief. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, chief.
Yes, sir.
Anything else until
No, sir.
later?
No, sir.
Let's move on to fire. Chief Cottrell.
Good evening. I'll just give a brief department update and see if you have any questions. So this coming week, next week on the 30th, myself and 2 other firefighters, we're going to Ohio. That's where our ambulance is currently under construction. We're going to perform a final inspection on our new ambulance. And after that inspection, it's going to our dealer in Illinois for final preparation, equipment installation, and the like. We should receive the ambulance projected the end of April right now. That may fluctuate, depends on how this goes, but we should be receiving that in just a few weeks, so we're pretty excited. Kind of to tag on to that, wanted to report on our current ambulance, 2012. We had it down last week for repairs. It's out again for repairs, so vehicles know when they're about to be replaced. It's just the nature of using equipment. The timing couldn't be more perfect for us. The update on the vaccination, where we stand currently. St. Louis County Department of Health reached out to the fire departments and districts in the county to see about interest of us going into people's homes for homebound residents. It's a pretty broad net of who's considered homebound, but essentially people who can't get out on their own accord to go to these vaccination sites. So we are going to be participating in this probably the first full week of April. So in 2 weeks from now, we should start rolling out, going and doing actual home visits. There's some complications with logistics that are still being sorted out, and that's just basically taking the frozen serum, the time it can be, in coolers to be injected in someone's arm. So there's some restraint there, but we're working out those details, and we're very excited to offer this to residents in the very, very near future. Our turnout gear, final measurements were made today, so orders should be placed by the end of the week. So that's exciting for our personnel. We should have that within the next 2 months. They have to order. And then we have a RFP open currently for ballistic protection, and we're going to open bids and have recommendations back at the April meeting. Next week, we have a new employee starting. Chris Cosmas is his name. He's assigned to B shift. He's a firefighter paramedic, and that will bring us fully staffed, fill all positions, with the exception of my final item is we have posted an opening for the assistant chief position. We're currently accepting applications, and that is through April 16th. After that date, we will start the interview process. And we have received several applications to date. That is my report. If you have any questions.
Questions for the chief? David?
Yeah, I when you make the tour for with the in process ambulance, you're gonna ask them for like a Smokey and the Bandit, Firebird logo on the front hood or something like that? Is that kind of the thing you can do, or is it just? I'm kidding, obviously. So what do you do when you tour and see an ambulance under construction?
Absolutely. So our book of specifications is about 75 pages long. So yeah, we're going through line item and just making sure X piece is where they indicate.
Ronnie, on the assistant police or assistant fire chief position, nobody from within interested?
So we do have one internal candidate that has applied.
Okay.
All the other candidates do not work for Brentwood.
Okay, thank you. Anything else for the fire chief? All right, let's move along. Thanks, Ronnie. Move on to Public Works Department. Dan?
Yeah, this is pretty straightforward. 2 different areas for streetlight updates. So tackling the first one, Brentwood Forest. There's a spreadsheet that's attached and a memo. Basically, we've identified 5 places for underground placement of Ameren-owned streetlights. So I put a typical picture in there in the memo of one that's on Hatton Lane. It'll be those fiberglass decorative ones, roughly 17 feet tall, and have a decorative post top on them. So there's those 5 locations. And then there's 2 overhead locations that I'd identified that had old metal halides. So one's at Brentwood near North Swan Circle, and the other's Brentwood near East Swan Circle. But Ameren's looked at these locations. There's only one that they still have to look at. But of the 7 different places that I identified, there's only one that they still have to confirm. The other ones, they said look fine to them. And then once they confirm that last one, they'll forward the paperwork to their construction department, and then we'll get something back to sign. And then assuming that they are okay with that last source pole, then I can give the go ahead to Reinhold Electric. If you recall, Reinhold did the poles starting in 2019 and then finishing up in early 2020. They said that they would honor the same price that they quoted. They were the low bid of, I believe we got 5 bids back then in 2019. So, you know, the goal is to moving forward, you know, I would think by the beginning of April, we'd get those started, you know, get the underground lined up, you know, start with the bore. And then once the bore is done, then Ameren installs their pole. You know, they feed the wire through the conduit and they do the energizing of the light, you know, making it live. So that's Brentwood Forest.
Hey,
And
Dan,
then-
how come we don't have to do that survey work and everything on these? Like we're doing in York?
Oh, because these are publicly owned roads. It's like where I picked these spots, it's in right of way that the city already owns. So like Renwood, your Swan Circle, that would be within area that isn't private property of Brentwood Forest. So I don't need to do an easement. It saves money and it speeds up the overall process. And then switching gears, you know, York Village, those are all privately owned roadways.
Sure.
And it's really weird. I included with this update, there's a York Village subdivision plat from 1926. The folks that live there, and the TWM's looking for more records, but this is the only record that they could find so far at the Recorder of Deeds is this 1926 plat. And of course, there's the other half of it, you know, as it was developed further out. So what's weird is that each lot actually owns to the center line of the roadway. So if you live on Northcote or, you know, Sussex, doesn't matter, whatever the street is, not only do you own, you know, what's shown here, but then there's a dashed line out in the middle of the roadway. Technically you own out to the middle of the roadway. So the confusion is the one I wanted to put on the north side of Northcote, those houses don't exist anymore. When the interstate system was widened, you know, 64 was widened, those homes were demoed, I don't know how many years ago, but they don't exist anymore from the 1926 plat. And the question becomes, when those houses were there, they owned to the center line of Northcote. Well, when MoDOT did the highway, does MoDOT now own to the center line, or does MoDOT own slightly to the north of the paved edge of the roadway? So that's what they're trying to figure out for that one. And then the other ones, they're just working through, you know, with the individual ones. So you've got 54 York. So that easement preparation is underway. And the ones with York Hills, they're looking at that too, because it may not be common ground. It may be that there's like 2-3 different owners where it's split across that island. So they're researching those records. But in any case, we'll figure out who the owner is, approach them with the easement, and assuming that they're okay with it, sign off on it. The one thing I put in the memo was that the person at 18 York preferred that we not do it now and consider updating 41 Northcote, which has an AC powered light. So there's an existing Ameren light that's powered, you know, with alternating current. And would we consider putting a solar in its place? You know, I'd prefer to put a solar at number 9 and leave the one at 41 Northcote, because then it would be a net gain of an extra light. You know, but we'll look into it. You know, I prefer having more lights than just replacing one with another type of light source. And then, you know, they already had light there. It'd be nice to put it in an area that was darker, especially since we've already been talking about public safety and people rummaging around in cars.
Yeah,
So,
makes sense.
and both of these are for information. There's no action needed. And whenever we have the next meeting, you know, hopefully I can report that we started something, you know, besides planning.
Any questions for Dan on streetlights? All right, thanks, Dan. We'll
Thanks.
have more with you later. Move on to consent agenda, which we really don't have anything under. So move on from there to old business. And Chief, you're back with the promotion of a corporal or to sergeant.
Yes, sir. So with the retirement of Hattie Carmen, Sergeant Carmen, we're going to be down a sergeant, and we've asked Bola to promote to the rank of sergeant one person, which then of course opens up a position for a corporal. So we would need a corporal and a sergeant to staff our squads.
Okay. That's it?
That's it.
Bo, is there anything we have to take action on with this, or is this an internal matter?
The reason why we're bringing it to public safety is it requires the additional expenditure than what was budgeted. But I believe the chief in his memo outlines what that dollar amount is and the department can absorb it. So, and because this is happening outside of the budget process, that's why we're bringing it to the committee as well. So a motion to approve and allocation of monies for it would be the motion.
All right, I'll wait for David to reappear. Hey, Chief, how long was Hattie with the force in Brentwood?
She will be 25 years on April 15th.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tell her
long
thanks.
time.
Tell her thank you for her service. It's unfortunate the way she has to depart.
Yeah, it sounds like we may be going back to live board meetings, so hopefully we'll get an opportunity to bring her to a board meeting and you guys can say goodbye to her at that point. But yeah, she had a great career. She was really a valuable piece of the team, and we'll miss her greatly. She's as good a cop as she was fun to have around too.
Yeah, definitely. With my encounters with her, we're always good, thank God. All right, well, we need a motion. Anybody?
So moved.
You have a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
One opposed? All right. Chief, I think you're still up with the discussion on the sponsorship at the County Police Academy.
Yes, sir. So I think the last class, and Ronnie, you might want to help me with that. I believe the fire department was able to sponsor somebody in the fire academy, a recruit that you had identified. We're basically asking for the same process, and really in law enforcement, and I know the fire side's challenged with recruiting as well, but we're really challenged with recruiting these days for all the obvious reasons. And one of the things that we see over and over again are the academies, and this is not just the St. Louis County Academy, by the way. This would be the St. Charles and the
Eastern Missouri.
Eastern Missouri. There's 3 or 4 local academies that we can draw from. The best and the brightest get scooped up very quickly. It's a very shark-like environment for hiring right now in law enforcement. So if you give us the ability to be able to select a recruit that's in the academy and actually hire them predicated on them graduating successfully, that would be a significant step forward to be able to recruit and hire some good folks. The quicker we can get to these classes and pick out good people, the better. And that's not the only way that we would try to hire. Obviously, we would also look for experienced officers and other departments that would be interested in Brentwood, but this would give us a really nice option for a recruit to be able to go forward with them.
Steve, I'll make a motion if you want.
Sure.
I'll make a motion that we bring to the full Board of Aldermen for consideration a resolution similar to Resolution 1201, which was considered by the board concerning the fire department, the same resolution with regard to the police department and the police academies.
Second.
I have a second. Bola, question. I think when Chief Curtin put this together for recruiting, there had to be a policy put in place. Would this then be developed and brought back to our committee?
That was the process that the fire department used. So the policy was actually reviewed by the committee before it went to the board.
Okay, so at this point, does it need to be a resolution to the full board if we really don't have a policy yet?
Well, I think this policy is going to mirror it. And I want to say this committee back on the 6th of 2020 approved this. I think what they also approved was the tuition repayment agreement. Now, what is different when the fire department presented it was that they were, and Ronnie, you can speak to it if you remember, the department was also looking to implement an initiative for diversity. So, and that has not been articulated by the police department. So is it just to ensure that we have a great candidate, but also to advance diversity and inclusion in the department? Maybe you can speak to that.
Chief, you got anything to add?
Yeah, I would offer to you that we have been successful in being more diverse here since I've been here, in particular since Angie's been here. With African American officers being hired, we have Officer Figs, London Brown. We've hired at least 3 females. So we've really focused on that. That's not why we're asking for this particular consideration. It really is about getting the best recruit, no matter who they are, out of these classes. So the diversity piece, while it's always there for us to consider and try and do as well as we can, that's not the reason we're asking for this. We want the best recruit or best employee that we can get.
Just to jump in on that too, it's not the reason we would be asking for it, but we would really become attractive to obviously any qualified candidate, any excellent candidate, including those from diverse backgrounds, any minorities. They're extremely marketable in law enforcement for this very reason, and it's something that would, those candidates are very hard for us to come by currently because we don't have this as an option. They are typically always already hired when we come in and we try to recruit. So this would kind of put us in the ring with those other agencies in that regard.
What type of cost are we looking at?
The cost of most of these academies is around $6,500 for the tuition. I think the key to it, though, Alderman Lockmiller, is the fact that we would actually be hiring them. So oftentimes what happens with these folks is that they have to quit their job. This is a full-time academy. It's lasts for 5 to 6 months typically. So getting a paycheck while they're in the academy is a huge piece of this benefit moving forward. And of course, they get to come to the city of Brentwood, so all the better.
Yeah. And then there would be a reimbursement by them, or?
On which part, the tuition piece?
Yeah. Because I believe that's how we're doing the fire
There would
department.
be an agreement. So they would have to sign an agreement whereby it would be similar to the fire department. I don't remember how long the agreement would be, and if they were to leave, or the city would recoup its cost, they would have to pay, I think it's a prorated amount back. So, which is why I would recommend you all take a look at that policy, because now it probably needs to be worded a little different. And the city attorney was helping in crafting this as well. And obviously, Chief Cottrell can help as well. And Jason's on the line. So there are many people that can provide assistance.
You say Jason, you kind of cut out on me. I couldn't.
Jason Close is also online tonight. I don't know whether he was involved with Chief Curtin.
I was.
Okay.
I assisted the chief in crafting that policy. The major difference is the amount of time that an individual is in the fire academy versus in the police academy. There's a cost difference, so that would have to be reflected in any document or agreement that we have the candidates sign.
David, do you mind, instead of forwarding directly to the board, that maybe we take this up at the, once we have a policy in place? Or just look at.
That makes perfect sense. And if that's the path it took for the fire department's policy, then yeah, I'll change my motion to say that we want to develop that policy in the committee for further consideration.
Okay. That's Sunny, second that?
Yep, I'll second.
All right. Any other questions? All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, Chief. Let's see. I guess, Dan, you're back up with McKnight Road traffic discussion.
Yeah, if you remember from the last meeting, or maybe it was even the meeting before, but I think it was the last one, we talked about doing a joint plan with Ladue And Ladou's actually got their numbers for Litzinger westbound as well as southbound McKnight. So that information's in there for vehicle counts. The one thing I asked them to run, which they were able to do for McKnight, is a classification graph. So what that shows is the various lengths of vehicles that traveled southbound McKnight for that 5-day period. So I included something more recently. So the way ours works, our particular data collector is it's by federal highway sizes, that FHWA section 19. So it basically is small, medium, large. You know, the FHWA actually has like 12 classifications. A small would be a class 1, and then class 2 and a class 3 would fit into medium, and then everything above that classification is large. Theirs, it's by length. And the point that I was getting at is that whenever you look at the overall lengths in their graph, there's very few larger trucks, or what I want to consider larger, like 18-wheelers. You know, there's that would be 44 feet in length or greater, since typically your semi-trailer is 53 feet in length. Your rig varies a little bit. So typically the two combined is 70 feet or greater. So when I looked at the overall data day after day southbound for theirs, it's typically a 1% or less of the total vehicles that traveled southbound. So I was going to ask them if they wouldn't mind moving their collector to northbound, since you could actually filter the lengths. I can't do that. I can only, again, like I said, it's classification. So whenever you open it up, you know, you'll see that on the report that said stat track. So whenever I looked at that from ours, and I pulled the report today from 2019, because that would be pre-COVID conditions. So that and ours is able to give you north and southbound volumes, but as far as the size of the vehicles, again, it's small, medium, large is what I'm looking at now. So an average day in August of 2019, there were over 17,000 cars that went both north and southbound in a 24-hour period. But of that 17,639, there was 360 for that average that were in the large class. Again, it would be class 4 through 12. So that represents 2% of the total. So it's pretty small. I'm not saying that they aren't there. I'm just saying it's a very small fraction of the overall. So that's kind of what I wanted to prove there. I don't know if you have any other questions. I know that Ladou doesn't meet until April. Their public works is even months, and they haven't hit their even month yet, not till April.
David?
Yeah, I didn't want to necessarily ask a question other than just to say a couple of things. First of all, Dan, thank you for all this work. And second of all, I'm not in favor of us spending a lot more time on this. I think that the efforts that have already been outlined by Major Hawkins, the efforts that we're attempting with Ladou currently from traffic calming standpoint, be that as it may, and the ticketing efforts that are already ongoing, address this problem appropriately. And I think that we have a situation where a constituent of ours, a resident of Brentwood, is just wrong when they say that the volumes of traffic that violate in terms of size are 15 times that of what is actually supportable by the data. I don't know what else to do other than to present that to them and to explain that we've provided an appropriate response. And I know, Bola, I think you had said something in an email that sort of suggested that you might be willing to provide some of this data to Don and Odine. I'm in favor of you doing that. And I have no problem talking. I've talked with them several times. They've been to our ward meetings and they have expressed these concerns time and again. I mean, I live 1,000 yards from them, 500 yards from them. I explained what we've done, and I think this just supports our efforts completely. So thank you for that effort. Thank you.
Anything else regarding this McKnight study for Dan? Dan, did you have something else?
Yeah, the only other thing I had was that we put the data collector back up on Pine near that speed cushion. So I'm going to have the project manager pull it, and then I'll run the data on it. That way next month I can show you, since the speed cushion's been in, what speeds you're actually seeing. So it was up for, I think, 7 or 8 days. I just wanted to do a comparison. It's like, we know what it was prior to us putting it up, 2 years ago, when we first looked at that area. And now we've got real data since the speed cushion's been up. I'm hoping that it's holding people closer to the 20-mile-per-hour posted speed limit on either side of the cushion, several hundred feet. So we'll know with some sort of data collection whether that's the case or not.
And then I think you had some information regarding Litzinger. I guess that's our benchmark for.
Yeah, I'm
when
gonna
we-
upload. Yeah, I'll upload both of those because I've got that one that's pretty much done, and then, like I said, the Pine one, I figure I might just do something simple like PowerPoint, just like a before and an after, and just list bullets, of what the data shows, volume and speed, just to
Okay.
make it super simple.
Well, thanks for the hard work.
Thanks.
All right, any other questions for Dan? Move on, we have no new business. Kelly, we're back to citizen comment. Anybody out there?
No one has their hand raised at this point, so no comments.
Okay, motion to adjourn from someone?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Second, there we go.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, anyone opposed? Good. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you next
Bye-bye.
time.
Bye, Pat.
Bye-bye.